This is Channel 253.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain Podcast.
What are we known for? Well, Washington is a kick-ass agricultural state, especially in terms of hops and grain and fruit and other things like that. So having hoppy options, they're going to come in and they're going to be like, yeah, what IPA do you have? I think hazy IPA is pretty ubiquitous across the country at this point. So like, they're not afraid of that for the most part. But we do, every now and then there's somebody who walks in and it's like, yeah, I guess I'll start with a lager. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, wait, you have Best Bitter on? Oh, cool. Wait, Grodzisky? And I'm like, yeah, man, where are you from?
Inflection I want to hear. I want to tell you about this for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, coming to you guys from Peaks and Pints in Tacoma, Washington. Woo! Yay, Ron. Thanks for hanging out, tuning in, all that. My name is Matt McLaren. I'm here as always with Ron Swarner. How's it going, Ron?
I am thrilled to be here today
For
our holiday episode.
This is our, pre-holiday episode. This counts as our holiday episode for sure.
Was that your easiest intro ever?
Yeah. Here today.
So glad to be here today.
I'm so happy to be here today, too.
If I had $1 for every time.
For every time you heard that. Thanks for hanging out. We are doing kind of a pre-holiday episode. Definitely taking a week off next week because Christmas is on a Wednesday. But hang out for this one because it's going to be awesome. Ron, who are we talking to today?
We're talking to Texas Dave Rydell.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And Ted O'Hanlon.
Yeah.
From where?
From Here Today Brewing in Seattle.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
Hey, hello. We made it. Ted literally just walked in from the highway.
Right on time, dude.
Yeah. It can now be a TED Talk.
Yeah. Oh. Do you have like a groan counter?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good to be here.
Yeah, man.
Dave, we're happy to have you here.
Oh,
yeah.
So
You're
sweet.
one of the coolest guys in this industry.
Is that so?
It is so.
I'm not going to be able to fit through the door on the way out here.
It's a double door. We can open them both up.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, you got that tree in here. I don't know. For those who haven't been here, there's a 20-foot, what looks to be real Christmas tree out in there.
It is real.
Yep.
Ron chopped it down with his bare hands. And
No,
I believe
Menifee's
that.
in Gig Harbor.
I believe that.
Thanks, Menifee's.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. That's very kind.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you guys just celebrated your 2-year anniversary?
We did. Yeah, in October 8th, which was I'd say as this industry goes along, 2 years becomes more and more impressive every year.
That is for damn sure, dude.
So, we're really proud to do that. I mean, and obviously we'll probably get into this at some point today, but I moved to Seattle almost exactly 5 years ago, December 2nd, 2019.
Dang.
Which we all know what happened next.
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty good at the time. I had no idea what was coming.
I guess
and to get here today, kind of moving eventually, and to have even realized the dream of it being open is accomplishment enough, I think, for me. But it's great every day that we get to drink a beer, serve some food, hang out, do fun shit. I can swear on this, right? Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're
It's not
explicit.
kids.
Seeing around here.
Did you have any idea when you were growing up in Fort Worth, while you're playing the French horn, that you're going to own a brewery?
No. That's some heavy alluding to probably Ron's next questioning. Yes, I was so you're probably all wondering at home why I'm called Texas Dave. It's because I am from Fort Worth, Texas. And yes, have a previous life as a French horn player and music professor and performer and a little bit of everything, which also meant that I needed a side job. So I would say when I first went to school, I probably didn't think I'd be doing anything in the beer or beverage or food industry. But once I got into grad school, I realized pretty quick I'm going to need to be able to make extra money somehow until whatever works out, you know. So, yeah, I've dabbled in a lot of different food and beverage kind of things.
So French horn during the day, bar,
and
pouring beer at night.
Yeah, and a little bit of that, or
Except
drinking
concerts,
beer,
of course.
or drinking beer at night. Yeah,
Concerts at night.
Yeah, did that for a long time. Kind of grew up in a artsy musical family. Neither of my parents do that for a living, but we're both very talented in their own way in music and creative aspirations. My brother the same. I've been playing music most of my life. Dabbled briefly in sports and athletics and stuff like that, but music was always where I kind of figured I'd wind up.
Do all French horn players know each other?
No, not anymore. I wish I had been alive during the time that they did, because I probably would have made a better career as a French horn player. Because there would have been less competition. But I was saying, Matt, before we started today, that I had a professor in grad school we were kind of talking next steps. You know, I was getting close to the end of my time with my master's, and he was just kind of, you know, like, even this guy who taught at Juilliard and I was in grad school in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut, and taught at Juilliard and was a member of this kind of legendary brass quintet. He was like, I do coding on the side for money. And I was like, oh shit. Cool. So
I'm gonna find one of those then.
He was like, you got to build a pie of like things to do, which is, I think, was some of the best advice that particular person ever gave me. Because I've made a career out of being pretty resourceful and pretty like multi-skilled and kind of doing different things, and it's led me to this point for sure, and it continues to kind of guide my, you know, outlook on both this business and other ways that I attempt to be creative and make money and survive.
Yeah, mostly that.
Yeah.
What did you like to drink when you were French horn practice?
Oh, well, I wouldn't necessarily drink while practicing because, you know, practice like you perform, and I tried to perform mostly sober. Because, you know, all that alcohol, you know, can cause some numbing effect to the lips, to the embouchure, et cetera. But I did, in grad school, kind of something that I would say is formative on my road to here today, was a bar called the Spigot Cafe that did not serve food in Hartford, Connecticut. Every Friday night I'd go down there. A lot of grad students, you know, we go there after class. We'd have late night classes or late rehearsals. We'd go there and hang out, kick it. Fridays I would go down there for a particular reason, and that was to play darts against the like old heads who were really good, and I wanted to be really good. I still do that on the side today. But go down there on Fridays, and the other thing the Spigot had on Fridays was $3, or when I first moved, there was $2.50 any bottle out of the cooler. And so the coolers, it was a total trust system, cash only. You go grab your bottle, you walk it up, they'd open it for you, you pay for it, you go back to your seat. And the coolers were not full of, you know, they had the normal stuff, you know, your different Mexican lagers, your Narragansett, you know, up there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Occasionally Lone Star, which I always enjoyed. And then they had a bunch of different, like, craft beer. Like, at the time, you know, it was 2010, 11, 12, like Harpoon, Flying Dog, kind of those early like New England kind of things, and then a few things from around the way. And so I'd like pick a different beer every Friday and drink 6 of them. Sometimes, you know, midway through being like, man, I'm really feeling these things, and look down and realize I was drinking like an 8% double IPA. And be like, well, shit, already here. Let's go. It. Yeah, made my aim a little better. But yeah, so that was kind of formative in my starting to develop thought process that beer was more than, you know, the shit I drank in college. Even though when we had money, we would drink Shiner, which we didn't have money that much, but we would drink Shiner Bock when we had money. And the first hoppy thing I had was, like many people I'm sure, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's kind of like, oh, this is what hops can be. Cool. Yeah, that was kind of a big development for me. And then after grad school, I spent a year still in Connecticut working at a Whole Foods 4-ish days a week in their specialty department where they had beer and cheese. And so I was learning about all those things. Yeah. And spending a lot of time like hiking around the New England area and just kicking it around the New England area, kind of exploring all the things that it had to offer. And that usually involved a lot of beer. So... yeah, and then that kind of led me back home. Eventually, I got a job teaching at a university in Fort Worth, the one I attended for undergrad. And shortly thereafter, a buddy had opened a brewery and needed some. After I ran a cheese shop for a minute, that was fun. But buddy needed a bartender, and that's what kind of got me into the craft brewing industry, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Was that Collective Brewing?
That was, yes.
That's down in Texas now.
So it was in Texas. Okay. Yeah, back in Texas. Yes, I moved back to my hometown in 2013, something like that, and spent some time teaching a lot of private students, a lot of, you know, adjunct professor work, doing some other stuff for them, for the university, and then, wound up on the side there, and by the time I left to come here, was doing all their sales and marketing and a little bit of everything else.
Yeah, incredible marketing programs with the arts in that town.
Oh, yeah. The Fort Worth, for those that don't know, it's not just some sleepy cow town, although it was the cow town, is the cow town. It's where all the cattle drives would start to go up, like Chisholm Trail, up into the Midwest. And so there's still an area where they would... you know, everybody drive their cattle to one place, and then they'd either drive it up with horses and guys yelling and stuff, or they'd put them on a train eventually. But what that led to was a lot of money and a lot of oil money, too. And then a lot of those people put a lot of money into the museum system, the arts, culture, all sorts of things in Fort Worth. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, which is what a lot of Texas cities are like. You know, there's a lot of... big conservative systems, and then there's a lot of very vibrant artistic endeavors and things that are being supported by some of those same people who are supporting those other kind of more oppressive ideas.
Little bubbles of creativity.
Yeah. So, you know, you do need money sometimes to make art happen. So it's always an interesting place to grow up, and it's always an interesting place to return to.
What brought you up here to Seattle?
What brought me up here was I was introduced to my business partner, Chris, who's not with us today, but who was working on this Here Today project along with the person who introduced us, Averie Swanson, formerly of Jester King, and now is Keeping Together in New Mexico by way of Chicago. Her and I are dear friends. We talk every week. Via text, mainly, you know, a little group chat we got with a buddy of ours back in Austin.
Fellow beer nerd. Oh,
yeah. Advanced Cicerone. And our master Cicerone friend, Avery. They all... she introduced us and was kind of doing some consulting, some work on the project, and then started Keeping Together and kind of backed away once I was in place. So we got introduced for that, and I was, at the time, Collective I kind of known for a few months that Collective was on its last legs, and I did a lot of cool shit with them, and like those are my people, you know. One of my best friends worked there. We worked together for a long time. And I kind of knew it was dying, and started looking around, and I had the advantage of. We were a Shelton Brothers brand, and so I had done a lot of travel and done a lot of networking and kind of like meeting a lot of people. And so started to put those feelers out there, and one of them that came to me was Averie talking about this project, and I had never been to Seattle, but I figured, well, they got mountains and water and all this kind of stuff that I don't have right near me in Texas, and sounds pretty cool. Let's check it out, and it worked out. And at the time that I joined up, which I'm sure you have on your notes there.
The No Anchor.
Yeah. No Anchor was still a thing, which was Chris's, kind of amalgamation of James Beard nominated food and beverage program with a kind of upscale beer bar, / neighborhood tavern,
He had the Proletariat in New York City, right?
Yeah. He was part of that original opening team of the Proletariat, and had a stake in it for a minute. He had been around kind of doing a bunch of cool beer stuff and cocktail stuff in both Richmond, Virginia, and New York. Then he met his business partner in Navy Strength and Vinny's and No Anchor at the time, and moved out to Seattle. No Anchor, I was there for the tail end of it. I was only supposed to be there for, a few months until kind of in an interim capacity as their GM. But then the pandemic hit, rode it out till it closed, helped them with the next spot, trade wins in that place, and then we closed that. All the while kind of furthering the goal of getting Here Today open, both by taking the time we were afforded, thanks to the pandemic really, to work on the business plan, and also fundraise quite a bit of money that we needed. So Chris was kind of we talked on the phone, about kind of the No Anchor thing first. And then I dug into that, and then we started, doing the talking to people, and then the pandemic hit, talking to people about money and all that sort of thing. But we've had a lot of people help us along the way. And I think Chris and I are kind of the perfect, we have a lot of similarities, but we also have some balancing factors that I think really help us work together well as a group. At the time we had Mr. Mario Cortez join us as brewer. When he stepped away from the project earlier this year, the man to my left here, Ted, joined up and has kind of taken the thing and dialed it in, I think, really hard. These beers that we're producing right now are some of my favorites we've made. And
we're drinking.
Are now recipients of many accolades
and
locally.
now we entered our first, really our first kind of round of competitions and did pretty well, which is cool, which is as somebody who thinks about marketing on the regular, I don't know that there's a lot of juice from getting those medals these days. I think it's kind of just good feedback, good validation when you do win something or when you make it to a final table and you get that in your notes. I think that's great. It kind of, we brew stuff for our customers. We don't brew stuff for guidelines or even ourselves sometimes, we got to make money.
So we're drinking Hold the Phone. It's a best bitter collab with Formula. Ted, can you tell us about the beer?
I think I've known Jesse Brown, the head brewer at Formula, for a long time. I brewed in Wyoming for a while.
Can you pull the mic?
Oh yeah,
right
a little closer here. Yeah,
get in there.
And I met him out there, and ended up at Seattle as well. We, as Dave said, we're not very style-based as a brewery, and collaborations are often an opportunity to do something slightly different, go a little bit against the grain with what you're normally doing. So we're what's the most against the grain thing that Here Today can brew or can do, and make something completely to style.
Follow the rules.
So that was what we set out to do, is to make a completely classic best bitter. It's all English malt and English hops, and the Fuller's strain of yeast.
Nice. Dang, you guys went real hard.
Absolutely. And all Simpsons malt, East Kent Goldings, and 4.5%, and it's 3.5%.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's been a while since I brewed
about it.
That's
But we just wanted to I think sessionable beers really sit in our wheelhouse, and I think if you look at our tap list, we have a lot of sub 5% beers. That's sort of something that we're trying to carve out a space for ourselves in the Seattle beer market.
Yeah.
And this one was just really exciting to make because you're not trying to stretch out with it. You're just trying to follow the rules to some degree. But every brew house and has its own quirks, and creating something with somebody else as well is like a collaborative process. So I'm really proud with how this beer turned out. It's actually super drinkable.
It's really good.
It's awesome. Like accolades well earned. Honestly, Jesse's been like the talk of the town for ever since World Beer Cup. Man, he's like, I think everybody who did not know who Formula was or even knew that Issaquah had any craft beer stuff going on
Anything
outside
cool.
of a couple of spots. Like it was just like immediately on everybody's radar, which was really cool to see. Like everybody getting so excited about these really classic styles, winning awards out of Washington.
Issaquah's my hometown. What's up, Issy?
Ted, when were you at Block 15?
I was there from 2021 to 2023.
Okay.
You
look really familiar.
Yeah, well, I've been here for a tap takeover, actually.
Yes.
That would do it.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, I came up for a tap takeover. So, so I love the space here. It's always there's a great selection.
Where did you go after Block 15?
Here.
Okay.
It was straight to.
Here today. Yep.
Yeah.
And before Block 15, were you somewhere?
I was. I've been brewing for 14 years. So. Before Block 15, I was the head brewer at Bow and Arrow Brewing in Albuquerque. I was there for 5 years. Before that, I was the lead brewer at Blacktooth Brewing in Sheridan, Wyoming for about 3 years. And before that...
Just another, medal hound.
It's a big time.
So many medals for,
classic style beers.
Styles, yeah.
Yeah. It's the Northern Rockies that's like the land of Scotch ale and brown ale. So...
It's alive and well.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I mean, I don't know if the brown ale, Saddle Bronc Brown, is still their best-selling beer, but, I mean, they sold... 3,000 barrels, 4,000 barrels of Saddle Bronc Brown when I was working there.
I'm not sure can any brewery in the Pacific Northwest say that?
I work with 35 breweries, and I couldn't do that if they all put together.
If I had my druthers, we would be that brewery.
You like
Maybe
yours?
not. I mean, I like money, so I guess IPAs are cool.
Yeah.
So that's where the Pivo Grodziskia comes in.
Yeah, that's where this hard-hitting
super
style
hot item
Grodzisky comes from.
Keeping the lights on,
which is
baby.
a wonderful transition. Is what we're doing now. Which, if you want to know the real connection to this, to our brewery, is Texas related. You
guys have been all over the place, both of you.
We do. We like to get around, but. If you want to know why Grodzisky should be your favorite style, I first learned about the style from Live Oak Brewing in Austin, which is one of the legendary lager producers.
Yeah.
Also produces what is referred to, no joke, as the best Hefeweizen brewed in the world, even amongst a lot of German brewers who make Hefeweizen for a living. Live Oak has a lot of great stuff going for it. And it's right near the airport in Austin. And they have a disc golf course if you're into that sort of thing.
Nice.
So if you need to kill some time before you get there.
Did you drive over there a lot?
To Austin?
Yeah.
I'd be down in Austin every couple months when I was in the beer scene and kind of doing stuff. And
hanging at Jester?
Either going out to Jester King. I did, some work for Good Beer Hunting for Jester, pieces on their farming situation there and a few other things. So... Mario, when he came on to the project, when we were kind of interviewing Mario, we asked him to give us some styles he would like to put it. We have these serving tanks in our tap room. One of the first things you'll notice if you come into our tap room are these very large serving tanks, Mueller horizontal serving tanks. And we're like, why don't you just tell us, give us an idea of what you would do with those tanks, in the summer and the winter. And one of the things he mentioned, he was starting to describe, it's this low ABV smoked wheat beer. And I go, you mean Grodzisky? And he was like, yeah. I was like, are you thinking about the Live Oak one? And he's like, yeah, because Mario was also from Texas. And I was like, I'm in. So we had done this a couple times. This is maybe the second or third time we brewed it. But I think this is definitely the most refined version of it.
Dude,
it's a little higher ABV than I think would normally be, but and by that I mean it's 4%, not 3%. They call it colloquially, refer to it as Polish champagne because it's smoked wheat, but low ABV and pretty spritzy. And I don't know, it's just one of my favorite things to kind of drink. Because also, even if you're not a fan of smoked beers, it's more aromatically significant than it is like flavor-wise significant from a smoke standpoint. So as you're drinking it, it's kind of like those old school pumpkin spice beers. Like by the third sip, you don't really taste the pumpkin spice anymore. It's like kind of just in the background. It's just beer at that point, and this kind of does that with just a touch of little hot dog water, which I love. And so
I prefer bacon. I think it tastes like bacon.
That's fine
like
too.
Bacon.
Whatever floats your boat.
I get hot dog water too.
Definitely not as
We did a pro-am for Tacoma Beer Week back in August, and one of the beers that won was Grzycki.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic too. It was made so well. And
dope.
I took it to Jeff, and I was like, "Hey Jeff, do you want to?" We're at Sig, and I was like, "Do you want to make this for this pro-am?" And he was like, "Actually, man, I've already got one in the tank." He's like, "I would love to make another one, but that's too much hot dog water. I'm not trying to get fired."
Yeah, we do have to balance those things. But yeah, a lot of the thought around like us making some things that are, we make a lot of hoppy options and stuff. The Pacific Northwest, we know where
That's
we're
how
at.
I got to know you guys was your hoppy stuff. Early on,
and we take a lot of pride in those too. But I think and this extends to those. Like our flagship hazy IPA is 6%, and this is 4%. The other one's 3.5%. Like we don't do everything super sessionable, but we like to within the style guideline do it like in a sessionable way, and we think that makes a more like food friendly beer. And just something that's easier to kind of gather around. That's part of the ethos. That's part of why we're called here today. Is like, we're not necessarily making beer that's going to drive the conversation. We're making beer that's going to accompany good conversation and like good moments and stuff like that. Nice. How long do you think I had that locked in?
Yeah, totally.
That's so good, right?
Marketing and operations,
right? But for real, like that's a genuine thing, like a genuine intentional thought we had going into doing this, and then both Mario and now Ted have kind of helped us realize that through these like really delicate. I think this is super hard to execute. It's like you can pound in 7 pounds of barrel dry hop, really go for it, and that can be beautiful and wonderful as well. But I think executing something like this with like delicate flavor that makes you actually want to drink more of it and continue to drink it throughout, like say a day, is hard to do, hard to execute consistently. And so
there's not a lot to hide behind. All the flaws come right out. And
Do the cruise ship passengers love it?
They love it when we have something that's like the like the best bidder on or lager. We keep some rotating lagers and stuff on, and also what I find with a lot of the people who come in from out of town, whether they're getting onto a cruise ship or have just gotten off a cruise ship, or their context, our location is right by one of the cruise ship terminals in downtown Seattle. Yeah. We are a waterfront brewery right across from Pier 70 and the Sculpture Park in downtown Seattle. So come and see us. There's a plug.
Yeah.
Right in the camera when I say
that.
There you go. What I find about the people who come to visit is a lot of the times they're coming to Seattle to experience what happens in Seattle. Yeah. Like, what are we known for? Okay. Well, Washington is a kick-ass agricultural state, especially in terms of hops and grain and fruit and other things like that. So having hoppy options, they're going to come in and they're going to be like, what IPA do you have? I think hazy IPA is pretty ubiquitous across the country at this point. So like they're not afraid of that for the most part. But we do, every now and then there's somebody who walks in and it's like, I guess I'll start with a lager. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, wait, you have best bidder on? Oh, cool. Wait, Grzycki? And I'm like, yeah, man, where are you from?
Question inflection I want to hear. I want to tell you about this for 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm like ready to dig in with that. We find a lot of people that way that are, they're just looking for something interesting and different and unique, and also something that has a little bit of that like sense of what Seattle and the Pacific Northwest is all about, especially from a beer standpoint. Yeah. So.
There's so many beers in that thing over there, Phaedra.
There is.
Well, I did bring 3 4-packs, but they're all the same.
We're actually going to take a super quick break, crack a couple of other beers. Ron is a barley wine, and actually Chris brought us, speaking of brown ales, Chris brought us a science beer.
And my collaboration beer.
Yeah.
So too much beer for one episode, but we're going to make it work. Stick around during the break, hang out, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Channel 253 sound producer Doug Mackey, and I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Indigenous Voices podcast from Fort Nisqually Living History Museum, located in Point Defiance Park. Now, if you haven't heard it yet, the podcast brings forward Native voices to tell Puget Sound history. The starting point is the Puget Sound Treaty War, an armed conflict between U.S. military, local militias, and the tribes involved in the Medicine Creek Treaty. The podcast features new dialogue between the different communities impacted by the Puget Sound Treaty War and its aftermath, which is still being felt today. The work for this podcast began 3 years ago, when Fort Nisqually brought together a panel of historians to discuss the legacy of the Puget Sound Treaty War with representatives from the Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Puyallup, Steilacoom, and Squaxin Island tribes. The Indigenous Voices podcast grew out of that award-winning program and has expanded to include discussions around the evolution of Native affairs throughout U.S. history, including topics such as school boards, tribal sovereignty, and land allotments. For many listeners, me included, the podcast has been a whole new angle on one of the most important events in state history. By centering tribal voices in the telling of Puget Sound history, the tribal knowledge and expertise really comes out. The Indigenous Voices podcast is available at fortnisqually.org and wherever you get your podcasts. My thanks again to Fort Nisqually Living History Museum for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for hanging out during the break. As always, a shout out to Doug, our wonderful producer.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah, Doug.
Thank you.
And to Channel 253. Please go check out Channel 253. Fantastic network of local podcasts. Support independent media. And stay up to date on what's going on around this community. And Chris is... What's up, Chris? Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, if you guys haven't yet, we have videos up on YouTube. Go and check us out. You can pretend like you're getting sloshed right alongside us. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, from the safety of your own home.
Yeah. Crack a beer, put it on your TV, clean the house. It's fun. That's like how I consume podcasts more often than not these days is like on
Cleaning.
video. Yeah, like I put it on video. Even if I'm not watching it, I'm just like listening to the video playing. I could just be listening to audio. I don't know why it's better.
I do so much
But it's
podcast
better.
cleaning,
Do you?
but not usually the video. Just listen and can clean and do all the things.
Okay, we have fresh beer in front of us. It's the barley wine that Ron poured. What is this, Ron?
For George, one big holiday. Supposed to come out Thanksgiving. It's coming out next week.
Okay.
Yep, we got an early taste.
Because of chestnuts?
Yes, because of chestnuts.
It's very
That's
mild.
fun.
It's spiced, right? But it's not that spicy.
It's pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Dude, it's very chestnutty,
really nice.
actually.
It's like an unaggressive barley wine, which
Right.
I love.
Yeah, man. Dude.
Very nice.
And they have an open fire on the bottle. So chestnuts.
Yeah.
Is that just your favorite thing, Ron?
Say it one more time.
Chestnuts.
Yeah. It's going to start singing. It's that time of year. This is the Christmas episode.
And then I chugged my barley wine because we actually have a science beer in front of us. We were talking about how brown ales paid the bills in some parts of the country back where Ted was brewing. But Chris found an old bottle of whose brown ale? Let me see.
Somewhere in Maine?
Oak Pond Brewing from Snowhegan, Maine.
Snowhegan.
Snowhegan.
I know it well.
Right now, do you think there's someone listening
It
that's
has a
like,
nice
oh
ring
yeah,
to it.
Yeah,
That's my favorite beer.
Snowhegan does sound like a cool place.
I'm drinking that for
Favorite
30
beer?
years.
Hey, Dave. All
Probably.
those
Yes, sir.
art shows you did in Austin. I mean, not in Austin, but in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Is that where you got your photog skills?
No. Sort of. No. I mean, that's where I met other artists. I've never done like a big time, like, I've shown like maybe one piece of photography before. But I was on the board of this art collective, art nonprofit in Fort Worth.
Art Tooth?
Art Tooth, yes. Man, Ron knows his stuff.
He's beer
He's
in our
trying
bar.
to beat like Sean Evans
Yep.
from Hot Ones on the like deep dive shit. But no, my dad, growing up, my dad, and he still does photography, has a big collection of cameras and stuff. But he used to take me and my brother to camera shows where he'd have like a table and buy and sell stuff. and he gave me my first cameras.
We're laughing at not you.
I know. This beer's probably real bad.
Yeah.
I just don't want to chug this barley wine, to be honest with you. Do we have a clean? We don't have a clean.
We shouldn't do
All right.
science beers.
Well, you know what? I will chug it.
I know. Yeah, sorry.
There's a little bit of lactic in that.
A little bit. To be
Along
fair.
with other
To
things.
be fair.
There you go.
He said he found it at an estate sale.
Yeah.
What?
We don't know.
It might have
don't know
been good
this.
fresh. It might have been
That
good.
smells
It probably is
great.
old.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great beer.
This is what
Good
killed
thing
the
beer is anaerobic.
Can I see that again?
It's a Brune.
Yeah, it's totally Nude Bruin.
Oh man, what a great beer. I'm being totally positive. I'm not talking any shit. Damn, that's old, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bring up the photography because you were
Yeah.
with Good Beer Hunting.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You were
So-
taking photos and doing writing also.
Yeah, I did a bunch of different things with them, but primarily, yeah, as a contributor. Man, guys, you should all go check out Oak Park Brewery. In its newest form, I bet it's good. Anyways, yeah. So I like I said, my dad kind of put me on that photography thing. I went away from it for a while and then started doing it for work again. And I do a lot of film photography for myself and others and all sorts of things. But with Good Beer Hunting, which is now kind of on hiatus, probably permanently.
Womp womp.
But I spent, 6 years doing stuff with them, 6-7 years. But I did a lot of photography, a little bit of writing, worked on their brand studio side. And I really, y'all were talking about podcasts earlier. I was thinking the like, what podcast do you like might come up because we're on a podcast. I don't know why. but I was thinking about it. I was like, I actually listen to a lot of stuff that's like kind of storytelling based. Outside of, well, right now I'm taking a break from all politically related podcasts. No
call.
reason.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that, but I'm listening to a lot of storytelling kind of based stuff. And yeah, that was one of the things that like drew me to photography and kind of my second iteration of being a photographer, not when I was a kid, now since my like kind of late 20s. And also drew me to Good Beer Hunting and all their kind of stuff that they had going on and being able to like document and photograph and hang out with and like kind of swap stories with people all over the country doing kind of the same shit that I was going through. It's really helpful. Yeah, like people who are ultra passionate and like trying to make it of something that's really fucking hard. Yeah, so that kind of drew me to that and my best way of doing that, I'm an okay writer, I would say, but I think my best skill to do that is through photography. So, and someday maybe I'll figure out the video thing. I don't know. It's just a lot of the editing's so much harder.
So much work.
Yeah.
Like now we got all this AI shit for photography editing, so it's like I just like press a button half the time or created a few brand presets for like the brewery and I just press one button. It's great.
Still using those skills at Here Today?
Oh yeah. I do I would say 99% of our like visual content is me. Or me handing my camera to someone and saying, hey, take a picture of me, which is something I've become more comfortable with over the years. I used to really hate being on the other side of a camera, just like being behind it. And so I do that a lot. And, like knowing how to write a, kind of poppy caption or something for an Instagram post is a skill, I would say. And I think I do an okay job of that if I got to talk about myself.
Nice. Did you help with the interior of Here Today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that.
It's not your standard brewery.
No, and that's on purpose. No offense, man. I've enjoyed a lot of time at breweries that are mainly outfitted with like picnic tables and string lights and stuff like that. Like, I would argue Jester King is outfitted with mainly that, and it's a great place to visit. But for our space and like our location and everything, we wanted to do something a little bit different. Chris had the idea to incorporate. There's a kind of it was like a music school genre for a minute, still is kind of, and a little bit of an art school and thought called Vaporwave. It was kind of the mid 2000s, 2010, And that's where the distant past and the distant future meet in the middle. So again, another tie-in to the name here today. And what that would kind of look like. So there's a lot of like kind of Tron-like neon and imagery, and then like broken Grecian busts. And if you look at our branding, you know, we do a lot of pastel and like soft color and that kind of thing. And that extends to our space, which we lucked out. We found some free, as long as we could get them out of this Pioneer Square basement underneath a beer bar. We found some free booths that used to be probably like the company that made them makes all the booths still to this day, furniture to this day for like all the biggest fast food chains you can think of. And these are like brown fiberglass booths that were probably in like a Wendy's or a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or something. And we have those in there. It gives a nice vintage vibe. We have a few booths from the Everett skate deck, RIP. That's awesome, though. And like stuff like that. And so when you walk in there, it has like a little, it's not as intricate as maybe we hoped because money. But what we got at the end of it after doing some kind of compromise and some value engineering and stuff like that is a space that I think is really like warm, inviting, and has a good nostalgia kick to it, kind of 90s mall food court adjacent, while still being like a mostly functional brewing space.
Mostly.
Ted might argue he's like, a little different. You know, there's enough room. We do a little bit of, you know, kind of Tetris with pallets and stuff.
We've walked sideways a lot, but otherwise.
Yeah, you know. That was, you know, a little bit of Chris's vision and me and him working with our contractor and kind of executing basically a space that we thought a wide variety of people, like everybody from locals to tourists to whatever, to non-beer drinkers to non-drinkers, period, could like walk in and see themselves in and find some level of comfort there, which I think if we're looking at things the beer industry needs to be better about, it's about creating spaces.
Accommodating?
Well, just creating spaces that without much effort in the moment, people can walk in and find something that they can kind of latch onto and see themselves in or feel accommodated by like the whole thing. So
we talk about that a lot, actually.
Yeah. And so you see that in both the way our space is kind of the vibe, quote unquote. And also if you look at our menu, like we have not just beer, you know, we have a bunch of great beer options. We have really good natural wine that we have on tap that like winemakers who are homies of ours keg up for us. We also have non-alcoholic cocktails that are really intentional and delicious, and we call them our choose your own adventure cocktails. So you can either drink it how it is, non-alcoholic, or you can add the spirit of your choice to it, you know, kind of thing. So try to do that just so that, because, you know, it sucks walking into, we've all been either that person or with that person who's in a group of like beer enthusiasts or something, and you're going to a brewery and they just don't drink beer. Either they can't or they don't want to, whatever. And they don't have anything to be excited about. And that sounds terrible. And like, I think the definition, Chris and I both share this, the definition of good hospitality is kind of throwing the party that those people are wanting to have. And the person you need to reach is not the person who's already excited to be there. The person you need to reach is the person who's like, oh, another brewery?
Right.
And then they walk in and they're like, oh shit, I have stuff. I have all these options, you know.
Oh, I'm connected to this in some sort of meaningful way.
I just want to go to the spaghetti factory next door.
Yeah. we do get a lot of people who are like, oh my God, I used to go there after soccer practice or whatever. You know? They're like, do you have spaghetti on your menu? I'm like, no, we did try spaghetti night once. It wasn't as popular as we hoped.
Ted, we're passing around this table beer right now. Actually.
Dream Warp.
Which we've gushed about on the mic before, actually.
Right, we've had it on
We have had it on mic.
Yeah, right?
Yep. And actually, I was saying, like, during the break, like, when we first had this, I was gushing about the hoppy beer that I've had from here today. Early, like, super expressive pale ales from here today were super good. And you coming from Block 15, like a very well-known hop-forward brewery, probably makes the most famous double IPA in the Northwest, to coming here and now like getting accolades for these sort of like historical or like classic European styles. Do you feel like you have an affinity for one or the other, like hoppy beer versus kind of classic styles?
No, I think like they both sit in my wheelhouse. What I'm comfortable brewing, what I like to brew.
Yeah.
I really do like making these lower ABV beers, and I think that making a kind of hop forward lower ABV beers are really exciting too. Because I mean, it's like in this region, especially, there's just an expectation of hop character to be kind of a driving factor in a lot of what you're doing. And I think this is a beer that's like a good example of that, of like making something that's super sessional, 4.2%, and still has a really dramatic hop character to it. But I mean, other things as well, the different botanicals in it too.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I love it.
The chamomile is so nice in it. It's like, that's a really delicate flavor, and it goes so well with the beer. It's really nicely balanced.
Yeah, it helps that like anything, hops or barley or whatever you're using, you need to use the highest quality ingredient that you can possibly use. And we are sourcing really high quality tea from Rishi.
Yeah,
nice. Rishi's so good.
Yeah,
we use their teas in all of those non-alcoholic cocktails that I mentioned. That was kind of a trick Chris brought from his cocktail experience. It kind of helps lengthen the cocktail and cut back on, because there's a lot of, we need like something sweet, we need something acid, and we need some like structure. Yep. And so we have, we're using fresh purees or juices that might provide some of that acid as well. Sometimes some kind of like honey or syrup element, or like oleosaccharin. And then the tea that we use, and this chamomile in particular is from Croatia. And it is, you open up that bag and it's like these perfect little flowers. And it is so vibrant. Like, imagine this smell times like 100.
Sure.
So, yeah, we think kind of having the right, anything like this that we make in-house is a celebration of the ingredients that we put in it. Especially something this intentional to highlight that tea. We made this one with the folks at Human People, who are kind of guest brewing at Stoop up in Seattle. And our Modern Times exes, really great people.
Getting all kinds of buzz right now.
Yeah, and they've become kind of fast friends of ours.
Sure.
Andrew and Mal, and Andrew was kind of right on board with this from the get, and then they tasted it together. Ted and Andrew tasted it together and decided to add a little more expressive hop character. I can't remember what, Cashmere.
Nelson.
Yeah,
we added
good call.
Yeah, it was cashmere and citra in the dry hop initially on this, because it was, and there's lemon zest in it as well, and it was supposed to be complementary of that. But there was a bit of biotransformation with the yeast, and it was starting to express sort of a southern hemisphere character to it. So we thought maybe some
good call.
Yeah, some good Nelson could supplement, and that's where like a bit of that passion fruit note in this comes through, in the grapefruit as well, for sure.
Yeah.
So
really like this beer.
Yeah.
I think we've used the word biotransformation a couple of times, and I don't know that we've ever actually explained it. Would you care to break it down, actually, for people who are listening?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these flavored compounds that exist, whether they're hop based, they can be, they can be thiols, they can be, terpenes. There are various compounds that exist in everything that we add into beer. Yeast is reactive with them and can kind of restructure them, sometimes in really dramatic ways. Thiolization, I think, was a hot topic a couple years ago, and I think that one's already starting to fade out a little bit, because everything just tastes like stinky guava.
Hot take.
Well, I'll actually break that one down for people, because that's still a lot of nerd words. So thiols are sulfur compounds that are mostly responsible for most of like the super aromatic, especially like fruity flavors, but also like other flavors in beer. Thiolization is making those compounds much more accessible, usually through the use of specialty yeasts.
Yeah.
So you get more of those aromatics when the yeast breaks down those complex chains. That's thiolization. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. People have been doing it for hundreds of years. I mean, that's a big component of like lambic production too. Like obviously with long-term spontaneous fermentation, you're producing a lot of off flavors that would be completely off-putting to consumers, and then the Brettanomyces comes in and turns it into pineapple.
Yep.
You know, and it's just sort of like it happens slow. That in that time it happens slowly over like a couple of years, and you know what we're doing is within 72 hours or so. You know, it's pretty quick. You know, and this one's brewed with the Kvik yeast, which we have used a lot in the past. We're not using it as widely as we used to, but it definitely very bioreactive, and it really tends to take a lot of these like bright fruit characteristics that are so common in contemporary hop varieties and shift them in the ways that are sometimes unpredictable and sometimes like really interesting and unique.
Fun.
That's so cool. So out of that, you got these like very sort of Southern Hemisphere kind of aromatics, and we're like, let's bump that up with
Let's lean into it.
Actual. I love that Southern Hemisphere hop.
Yeah, and that's again a part of like the collaboration process too. Is that you're doing something unique, and if it starts to exhibit a characteristic that you weren't expecting, then you have to have a conversation about it, taste it again, lean into it, do what you need to do, make changes downstream to continue to push a beer in
Hell yeah,
unique character.
Love that.
That's awesome. Nice. That's Michael from Mirage. Talked about that quite a bit when he was on. Is like he treats every kind of recipe like a painting or something that's kind of living in front of him, and he kind of changes it as he goes. And like I always really like that approach. I think you get really interesting like results from that. I mean, you're talking about how intentionally you guys build up your non-alcoholic cocktail recipes with the idea that like you're sort of hitting these really specific notes and being intentional about it. I think there's a lot of room to improve how people do that with beer as well. Like see what's happening, see how you can, highlight certain things, or like you said, lean into like changes that happen and make those now the forefront of the actual concept of the beer. And then you get this fantastic, delicious, very expressive table beer.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, can you pass that back?
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Coming back. Well, hold on. Actually, hold on.
Yeah.
Good call.
It goes down pretty quick.
It sure does.
It does.
Yeah, and the kind of I guess thought behind this, we talked about like a pale ale at one point, I think, for this collab, and we were like, well, we want to make something lower ABV and that people don't expect to aren't looking for all the hops in it. Like we want the hops to be complementary with the chamomile and like this kind of thing, and so like making lower ABV table beer was just kind of I think it's a catch-all term that normally you would see in like maybe something that has mixed fermentation or at the very least like some kind of wild sack or Brett or something in it. But for this one we thought it was just kind of the appropriate catch-all term for sessionable, food-friendly. You could literally sit, if we had like a big bottle of it, you could just like leave it on the table for the whole meal.
Yeah.
And it'd be gone
It'll
by
be
the
fine.
end of it.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of that's the small, we don't do a lot of like super, like Collective, the brewery I worked at previously was a predominantly mixed firm, bread and sour or whatever beer house. And so we don't do a lot of that type of education here today because we don't need to. And also, I think in Seattle in general and like Pacific Northwest for sure, a lot of customers don't need that education because they've already figured it out for themselves.
Yeah, seriously.
A lot of the time. There's still some work to do, obviously, but this is one of the few opportunities that we get. Somebody comes in and it's like, what's a table beer? And, we can kind of be like, this is kind of our take on what that means to us and why we called it that. It wasn't just, we don't know what fucking style to call this thing. Like,
so it's light and crushable.
Yeah. Table beer. And it's not a lager.
It's perfect.
So yeah.
I love it, man.
It definitely exists outside of like any classic guideline. Yeah. It's something totally unique.
Perfect. I think beer needs more of that in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
We have a couple of minutes, which means if you guys have one, we try to squeeze a fuck up story in.
Oh.
All right, Grit and Grainers. I'm Sean Jackson, and I fuck up all the God-blessed time, as we all do. So, please do regale us with your fuck-up stories.
Like, Ted, have you ever had...
Have either of you almost died on the job?
Yes.
Perfect.
There you
You
go.
have 2 minutes to tell us.
No.
Too long.
I'm assuming
too
this
long
wasn't at our place.
incriminating people and or businesses.
Oh, damn.
And or just plain boring. I probably almost died on the job like 5 times.
Ted's got some secrets.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Brewing's
I don't-
dangerous.
I think I've never really done that much production. I did work on a canning line and bottling line at RAR Brewing in Fort Worth, which is is the oldest brewery in Fort Worth.
I work
These
with
days.
those
Oh yeah. And probably almost hurt myself a few times doing that. And then I clean our kegs, but I haven't hurt myself doing that. I've just gotten like sprayed with stuff sometimes.
I think
like
That's
nothing
the most
crazy.
common one.
I would say my biggest fuck up story was when I was starting at Bow and Arrow Brewing.
Redacted.
This is like 20. yeah. So it was our first barrel aged beer. Which, that first barrel-aged beer is always a big leap of faith for a brewery because you put all this money into a beer and then it just sits in barrels for a long time and you're not making money on it.
Yeah.
And I was blending it into a tank, which was like a single wall tank and a walk-in cooler because that's how we were doing, they were like service tanks. And so I was kind of walking back and forth, but I was also cleaning one at the exact same time. And I walked into the
I know where this is going.
go into the cooler to pull the carb stone out of the tank that I was cleaning, and just walked up to the wrong tank
carb
and
stone.
pulled
Oh,
the
no.
carb stone out of a fully pressurized
shit.
carbonated tank of barrel aged stout.
Were you standing in front of it?
You just stand it's like 36 degrees in the room, and you can put your hand on the port and just stop the flow of beer because I just immediately got blasted with 12-13% stout in a 30-something degree cooler. And I just put my hand on it. I just started screaming for my assistant, I'm in a walking cooler
Yeah,
with
it's
the door
soundproof.
shut.
Oh my
And
God.
I just, 10 minutes just screaming, Johnny! Johnny!
Yeah.
And,
I have so much anxiety right now.
And I'm
he eventually
sweating.
came.
I'm sweating.
He was
I know.
he was eating lunch in the other room, and he came running. Like, what's going on? And I need a valve and a clamp and a
Yeah.
gasket.
I
need a tri-clamp right
now.
In the open position.
In the open position, slam it on, clip it on, then you shut the valve.
exactly.
You have to shut the valve after you clamp it.
And a towel.
And oh man.
Yeah, and a shower.
And a Xanax and a
It
big
was,
beer.
it was
And
like
a big glass of that stout.
2 or
Yeah.
3 barrels of stout that hit the floor.
Oh my God damn it.
Yeah.
That's my biggest
And then he
fucking
was
story.
on Wart Wrangler.
I know, seriously. The next
Okay.
day.
You were able to hold in the beer though. in the tank?
Yeah. Cool.
Wow.
I was able to reach around and pull the
Pressure,
valve
okay.
and blow the head pressure off
Yeah.
of the
Oh,
tank.
nice.
Yeah.
Which the one thing that
Smart.
you don't realize when you're getting blasted with beer and you're trying to seal it, it's not just that it's cold, it's off-gassing carbonation
Yeah.
so fast that it's burning your eyes and your nostrils while you're trying
Oh
to
my
do
God.
it. You can't see, you can't breathe. You're just like,
That's actually really scary. You could have passed out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it would've been-
Especially in a
Yeah.
in
walk-in.
a
Yeah.
river
Yeah.
of beer. In a river of
I
stout.
think I
in
might,
a
I think
river
I
of
might have
stout.
accidentally, I might have accidentally
funny,
just
it's not
told you
funny.
one of the stories where I almost died.
Yeah, that's Chris. Yeah.
That's true.
That's a great
true.
fuck up. That's really
That's a
good,
very good
Ted.
one.
That's one of the best in
But
a
it
while.
sounds like some
Screaming
good
for help
I love
from
it.
inside the closed fridge is
Yeah.
a fucking nightmare. Dude.
Yeah.
In a cooler, they can't hear you.
I'll tell you, how about a French horn fuck up story? Yes! All right, so in undergrad, I had to do, we had a performance lab, like studio lab, where we had to perform, once a month or something like that. And I went to play, and I was probably a senior or second year senior. I was in undergrad for 5 years because I fucked up 1 year. But this is not that story. But I was going to play this piece, and I'm playing along, and everything's going pretty good, as good as it can be. And right in the middle of a rest, like a very short rest, like an eighth note rest, piece of paper falls off the stand. The sheet music falls off the stand. I don't have this memorized. I don't know what it is. So my accompanist pro saw it, stopped. We both stopped at the same time. I reached down, I pick up the paper, and as I'm reaching down to pick it up, just under my breath, I'm kind of like, oh, shit. like that. I'm in a performance hall with like awesome acoustics.
I was like, is your bow mic'd up?
And I'm like, no, and I'm like, I'm like 20, 21 and like trying to make this work, whatever. And so after whatever, I finish the piece, walk off stage, and my like direct professor walks up to me. He's like, you know we all heard that, right? I'm like, wait, you did? Oh, damn it. And like I had all these comments, like, and I got kind of in trouble and whatever. But then for the rest of my undergrad career, every time I get a comment sheet back from him and another professor, I would have another little box that they had drawn on there themselves that said no swearing check mark. And it kind of taught me something, it's like you never know when people are able to hear you or able to see you or whatever. Like, you got to kind of be on top of your shit. So that's a good lesson in life. There you go, kids.
That's why you were so cautious at the top of the hour.
Yeah. That's why I was. Yeah, now I'm just letting them fly.
All right, Grit and Grainers. Email us at cheers@gritandgrainpodcast.com with your comments, opinions, and gifts for the Grit and Grain crew, such as a Garmin GPS map, 86SC floating handheld GPS. Really, $5.99 is a meager price to pay for you to know exactly where I am on Earth within 10 feet. This particular model is designed for marine navigation. You'll sleep better knowing that I'm much safer on the water. What if I run aground? What if I'm lost exploring the Caribbean? What if I run out of margarita mix and I have no way of relaying my exact position to the supply ship? How will you feel then? If we'd read and drink everything we receive and we try to respond as fast as we can, if not online, then on air. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And please leave us a review. Also check us out on channel 253. And gritandgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for episode notes, beer news, and snack ideas, because the enterprising hip-hop heads at rapsnacks.net got your back. Buy a box full of 1 ounce bag of potato chips with your favorite rapper on the wrapper. And you're set.
Are you guys sponsored by Rap Snacks?
Chomp on Warren G's
yeah.
cheesy nacho chips, Master P's Platinum Barbecue, Mac 10s, Red Hot Cheddar, or give your taste buds a little junk in the trunk with Nicki Minaj, Sour Cream Ranch Truffle, or Rick Ross's Sweet Chili Lemon Pepper. Each bag contains 10% of your daily vitamin C allowance and a mere 150 calories. If play is going to play, you got to be well nutritioned. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter expectations. Does Batman dress in a cape and cowl because he barely represents repressed sexual deviance? Do the members of Cobra rebel against G.I. Joe because they view him as a father figure? Can Barbie's abysmal self-esteem be attributed to penis envy? Find out with the Sigmund Freud action figure. Put the id in ridiculous. This is the perfect gift for the psychoanalytical Dr. Youngster on your list. No such thing as a bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine. Or maybe so. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Shit.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you. Grit and Grain is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Move to Tacoma, Crossing Division, Citizen Tacoma, What Say You, We Are Tacoma, Flounders B Team, and Taco Man.
This is Channel 253.
Get up.